Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown, and I'd like to welcome you to the 25th edition of A Gathering of Priestesses. And tonight we have with us the beauteous Reverend Ione from Hudson Valley in New York, as well as my co-host, Catherine Ravenwood from Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're also being graced apparently by a small herd of cats. We have Nefertari, Haru, and Anket. I think there's a little bit of an Egyptian theme running through this household. And Raven's a dedicated cat servant, so she's been for many years having cats, but she's catless right now. And as I said, I'm catless, dogless, and kangaroo-less, but I find they get in the way of travel. So, and speaking of travel, Reverend Ione has just returned from her most recent travels, but since we may have new listeners who haven't heard before, we will start with our standard question, which is, Reverend Ione, please tell us what caused you to take the path of a priestess?
Well, yes, well, I was born into it. My mother, though she never said the term, was a if ever there was one, and so I had to develop into a big-time priestess in order to keep up with her, and that was how it all began. But more recently, I began to teach and to play with dreams and to be very involved in with creativity and to travel and to have circles of women who were telling their dreams and becoming very inspired. And then I was given an assignment to go to Egypt as a journalist, as I was writing at the time in New York City in my loft. I was writing for Village Voice and many other magazines. And it all began to come together as soon as I set foot on Egyptian land, right out of the airport. And on my return, I decided that the women I'd been teaching, I really had to introduce them to that sacred territory. And so at that point, I developed Women's Mysteries. I'll call it Women's Mysteries. It'll be a year long, and after a year, we'll all go to Egypt. We'll float on the Nile, and we'll do ritual and ceremony, and we'll receive the essence of the ancient world teachings just through being there as well. And that's what I did.
Now, you went to Egypt for the first time when?
That was 84. 84.
So how many times have you been there since then?
I've been there nine times. The last trip we took, 2012, was my ninth trip. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love going to Egypt, so I'm totally in love with that. But I also want to hear about your travels to, let's see, this summer you went to Prague, and then you just came back from France, and now you say you're going to Venice. So tell us a little bit about your travels.
Well, my travels are many, multiple, and fabulous, and seem to be an important part of my life. One of my teachers said to me some years ago, she said, well, you don't seem to be able to manifest money, but you can manifest travel. It doesn't matter. And that was the case. I've always been able to move to different areas. I lived in France and in Spain for a number of years, and actually had 2 babies in Barcelona.
No, really?
one in California. So I have 3 sons. So having lived abroad for a long time, when you come back to this country, you are never quite the same.
Oh,
Yeah, you always have that inside you in a different way, and there's something wonderful about that as well too, because then you appreciate this country all the more as well. But I realized that I really had to be in Europe more at a certain point. And so I decided one day, I was teaching here, teaching Egyptian mysteries, teaching women's mysteries with my ongoing groups. This is over a period of 30 years we're talking now, so vast amount of time. But I decided, I said, wait a minute, I need to be over there more, So I said, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And actually, I was in the circle, and I was doing a channeling, and my guide actually said to me, go to Paris, just go, you've got to go there. So I did develop teaching in doing what I do here in France, and this happened over a period of years. It's now been this is the 8th year of teaching with my Paris women. Someone just was making fun of me for saying, I've got to go see my Paris women. And she said she's got to see her Paris women. I said, yes, I do. So
I think the idea of having Paris women and Spain women, Barcelona, is a fabulous idea. In fact, Raven and I have both been trying to figure out how we can get our travels paid for more. So we're delighted to hear of someone who's doing it on a regular basis. I know that you went to Prague this summer. And Prague has always been one of those places that sort of fascinates me. The mysteries around Prague are really intense, and I'm talking about going back into prehistory. And of course, Paris, we have the Templars, we have the Mary Magdalene, we have all of the stuff that's just the French. Do you speak French?
I do. Yes.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, I was gifted by studying French from childhood, and when I got over there, I began to realize that I could actually speak it. So that was really good.
Yeah. So, but you also were in Normandy, right? The province of Normandy.
Yes. Well, the French women. They are Americans, and they're French. They're French women. They're Americans living in France. Some of them married to Frenchmen. One of the women has a home in Normandy, and that was where we first began to gather. And then another woman has a home in Bretagne, which is where we've been meeting more recently for the last 7 years. Summer, or actually it's summer, and now we were there for equinox, so we're doing initiation over the equinox period, and so that's on Ile de Bréhat, which is off the coast, the west coast of France.
Okay, all right. It's yeah. I have a map inside my head. I have to find where places are on the map.
Well, an extraordinarily beautiful and again mystical place. Yes, Templars have moved through there, dragons have moved through there, the Celtic, the deep Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
And Karnak is not far from there, for example, and the magical woods.
Yeah. So you're doing basically dream work, or are you doing women's mysteries whenever you're in these countries, or is it just all together?
Well, there's always incorporating and including dream work. In this particular group in Europe, we're calling this a mystery dream circle, mystery dream circles, and they have different themes every time that we are teaching. And Reverend Rachel, whom you know, was also a raven. She's a she's a raven. Has been going and teaching with me and doing the astrological concepts while we're there. Stars are very important as we're here. So yeah, so there's so that is where I've just returned from. So I'm still filled with the sea. The ocean is right there. There's extraordinary rock formations. One of them in the shape of a pharaoh's head.
Oh, really?
Yes, which is quite amazing. And doing meditation walk is there. Always with meditation, guided meditations, meditation walk in the mornings. Silence for the whole morning, entire morning, which gives a chance to write dreams, to connect to one's soul, essentially. So yes, it's women's mysteries, and with different themes each time, depending upon what comes to me.
Yeah. So your background is as a performer and a writer. And you have moved into this teaching of mysteries and dreams. So, but were the dreams always through your performing, through your? I mean, you're a playwright, you're an author, you're a speaker. So, were the dreams always part of your work?
The dreams have always been part of my life. Yeah, and my work and. Whatever my work has been, what I found is that they move through each section of my life, and actually I used to think that these things were separate. I was making a living as a writer in New York, and then I realized that I was doing these teachings as well. I was doing these dream circles, and and I thought I was being a typical Gemini and doing sort of split things until one day I realized that they were all each part of my healing work, a mandate to be a healer in the world. And that was an extraordinary moment for me, because then it all came together. And my writing, I knew, was toward that end as well, and my teaching and the groups were the same goals and same underlying meaning. So that was quite beautiful.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I know that you had, quite a career as a performer, as a writer, and now you have quite a career as a speaker, as a teacher, and yet what I see is that the dreams have informed the work, and the work has informed the dreams. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But that's what it looks like to me from looking at it from the outside. And so, since all of us are looking at how we can be more authentic in our own work and more less separated, less this is what I do for a living and this is what I do as a priestess. I think that over the years you have managed to bring those together, and I'd like you to speak to how that's worked for you and how it didn't work for you, and where, so that people can be informed, as to, in many ways we're stepping forward where others are following. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how that's worked for you, and what, like I said, what didn't work.
Well, I do recall one moment, and this was maybe 20-some years ago, when I said to myself, I'm just going to go for it. and it meant that at that point, okay, that there were all these things that I was moving into. I had done a 4-year training program called Helix, by the way, in which there are 4 women teachers in psychotherapy and healing and metaphysics and body work, Zen Buddhism and other forms of Buddhism. In any case, I had done all of that, and I was realizing, okay, I love my tarot cards. I had a private practice that was flourishing. I have tarot. I'm channeling. I'm doing all these things. There are a lot of people who think this is crazy. I'm just going to go for it. This is who I am. This is what I was meant to do. Mm-hmm. It just felt right. So it was a real moment of choosing, shall we say?
Yeah.
And since then, I have been that. It has been changeable, you know. I mean, creating a ministry has been not particularly, I wouldn't say easy. It's just that I've had to recognize, okay, this is the way things are now, and this is how I have to go with this flow with a group of women who were traveling with me. So there have been times when the timing of circles has shifted radically. You know, I've developed the circle, or the teachers. I was teaching on my own for a long time. Then I was teaching with Reverend Andrea Goodman.
Yeah, she's on the line tonight, so.
She was there from the very beginning, when I first was doing those early trips to Egypt, and then so Reverend Andrea began to teach with me and do magical, mystical awareness of sound and cosmic journeys into the heavens. So that added in that piece. And so sometimes I would have a monthly group, shall we say. I began with weekly, then monthly, and then gradually developed into a quarterly, seasonal meetings. And that's been going on for a number of years now. That turned out to be quite special.
That's when you meet on a quarterly basis at a place, correct?
Yeah, seasonally. But at the same time, then adding in and bringing along women to be teachers. So beautiful Reverend Rachel has begun to teach with us as well, and then now there are 36 ministers. So I'm also moving that along because I want to see everyone moving out and teaching in their own way. Anyway, so all of that is because we're all cats, so it's hurting kitties.
I understand that one. So let's go a little bit over the idea of the Ministry of Maåt, which is the ministry that I presume you're referring to. And I know that it sort of began with you, but grew, and now you say there's 36 ministers. And I know that, there's a lot of women that they sort of want, instant success in this. It's like, well, I've been doing this for 6 months. I want to see some results. I think I'd like to have you say how long you've been on this.
Well, with that, 1996. When was that? How long has that been?
18 years.
Really?
Yeah. I know,
Okay.
it was a blink of the eye. Is it 18 years or is it, no, 18 years. More than that. I don't know. I can't do math anymore. You'll be able to do math in my head. But 1996 to 2014, yeah, 18 years.
Well,
So,
this is the time that's only since the ministry was incorporated
uh-huh.
as a church. We don't use the term church, but it's legally as a church.
Mm-hmm.
But that was built upon um, 15 years prior to that of teaching,
Mm-hmm.
which is what really gave me the feeling that, or the understanding that there was something to incorporate, something to take to another level.
Yeah. So basically, we're talking about quite a bit of time that has been invested in this, and not only the time that has been invested in this, but of course the time that you invested in developing your own teaching, your own programs, and as you said, you took a course in with several people, and I believe you. Was it? Did I see that you went to City University of New York? Or no, that's wrong. There was a university somewhere in there. So the idea that you're basically this is a body of work that has grown over a time to the point that you have now say I have the ministry with 36 ministers, and they are teaching, and each one, I presume, has a little different slant on what it is that they're doing.
A lot, yes, which is what I like a lot. And that makes it, in some sense, harder to teach or to say this is what we are, because I am. It's eclectic, and I really like to see each woman doing what it is that she does, finding where she receives her greatest healing abilities. What is her, what women ancestors are running this healing abilities through her. That power, where that comes from, and it's different for each of us. I think I've talked to you a bit about the creative factor that we always have in our circles, a creative element, meaning that we ask women to develop that aspect of themselves and to create a presentation prior to ordination of some kind that really speaks to us about their levels of connection to themselves and to the divine. So I've mentioned before that I feel that this creative spark is our way as humans to connect to spirit very,
Yeah.
very, very, very closely.
But speaking of relatives and going back into ancestors, I believe you have some very illustrious ancestors that I came across. Your grandmother was she a doctor?
Well, my great aunt was a wonderful doctor. Yeah, I talked to you about her a little bit. Yeah, she was a doctor, and her mother was a writer. My great aunt was a doctor who graduated med school in 1903. Her name was Ione Whipper,
Mm-hmm.
in Washington, D.C. When I was a child, I was with her a bit, and I think I told you about going into her office there and really being so taken with all of the smells of the medicines and I guess it was alcohol and stuff. There was an examining table and so on. And she, as I learned as an adult, was the daughter of a woman, my great-grandmother, who was the author of the earliest diary by an African American, Southern African American woman to date, 1868 diary. She was also a writer, writing her own book in Boston at that time, 68. Which, and her book was the earliest biography, full-length biography by a person of color, either man or woman. And she was also a feminist, of course, and an abolitionist. So these are very early foremothers who inspired me to write my first memoir, which is called Pride of Family.
Yes. So that's what I wanted you to talk about, a little bit about your Pride of Family book. Because, you know, we are standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before, whether they're our mothers and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers or our sisters or what have you. And you have a really illustrious background. I mean, a doctor that became a woman doctor, any color, in 1903.
Right, really.
Very unusual.
Exactly. She was. In that age. Indeed.
So tell us a little bit about how you began researching. I mean, obviously you had experiences as a child that, you know, we all have those. Hopefully, we all have those experiences that we treasure of our ancestors who are around. But you managed to go back and pull that information forward. So would you tell us a little bit about how you did that?
Well, you were talking about things that were easy or things that are hard before. I'll just tell you that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life so far. Mm-hmm. It was not an easy task. Because first of all, I did not know about these women. I mean, I had grown up with my mother, my great aunt. I did know, but I didn't. But they would never tell me anything about themselves, really.
Really?
Yeah, really. And the men in the family are quite illustrious. So the men, they would, as I write in the memoir, here's the book, by the way. The men were well known, and also they were illustrious. They were abolitionist. William Whipper, the abolitionist, had owned railway cars and taken slaves from Philadelphia area up to Canada. My grandfather was a wonderful actor, stage and screen, whom I did know. Anyway, they talk about them, or I'd see they hear about them, but not about themselves. So at a certain point, my mother gave me her how did it go? Okay. My mother mentioned the diary, which I had never seen, and that there was a diary. I was going to write for Ms. Magazine about the women in my family. So something about a diary. Can I see it? And it was with Dorothy Sterling, who's a biographer. So who was also writing about her. She sent it to me, and I one day received something that I had never seen before, which is this little book that had not been shown to me. And I just opened it up and discovered in it a woman who was brilliant, her personality just jumping out of the pages. And I realized, oh my goodness, so she says the year renews its birth today with all of its hopes and sorrows. To me and mine, I know not, but may I continue to pursue my endeavor. So this is how it opens up. And I'm sitting on the floor in a loft with finally got the kids to bed, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I'm realizing, and she says, went to see Dickens yesterday. What a wonderful speaker, and she talks about what she saw and so on. And I thought, what's she talking about, Dickens? So that I was really at that point, I knew nothing about history. Didn't know Dickens had been in Boston at that time. So I had to start looking up each little thing. I became an historian. But that night, I also realized that, oh my goodness, this is being given to me. I have to bring this forward. So you have to consider me doing this at a time prior to the internet. And when you're researching, that means you have to go there and you have to write to people by hand, or if you have a typewriter. But you have to write letters to the historians. You have to travel and so on. I had no money. I had no agent. All of that, so I had to develop all of that. It took many years, many years to do that. I wrote for the first for the Ms. magazine, and that was when I coined the term foremothers, and I feel I'm claiming, as far as I know, that was the first use of
The
term. Yeah. So and people would say, foremothers? What are you talking about, foremothers? That's that. Forefathers. So that article did come out, and then I was embarked upon still researching, finding out who this woman was. What was her life? Who was she really? And it took 10 years before I even located a photograph of her, for example. So eventually, it was, let's see, my kids were, it was about 18 years. My kids thought, well, they were shocked when this book came out, because for them, Mommy was always writing the book.
Yes, right. My family comes from generations of storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up hearing the stories from when I was a little girl, and I would hide away under the kitchen table, and I would hear the story of my great-great-grandfather, who was a Cherokee and who moved his entire family from northern Georgia to northern Florida in order to avoid the Trail of Tears. And I would hear the story of my great-grandfather, who was born the year that the Civil War started. And they were different stories. And what I found whenever I got up and I got to college, and I went to some fairly good colleges, was that I was a rarity in that I knew the stories of my family. And most people, it was like someone had chopped off the history of their family. And in fact, I ran into people who said, my parents said that, they came over from Europe, and they, that was them. They don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And
yeah.
I think that what you've done, this sort of reconstruction, if you want to call it, where you go back and you find the stories of your family and you bring them forward, is probably one of the most important things we do, because this is who we are. This informs how we have been created. And many of us don't know how we managed to get to where we are, where we're sitting here saying we're priestesses, we're daughters of the goddess, we're traveling to Egypt. But if we go back in history, my guess is we'll all find that there are threads, there are times, and I get this again and again, where people say, the reason I am who I am today was because I have a grandmother who was who she was. Yes. And those stories. So the reason I'm really wanting to focus on this because you have done the work, and you did it, as you said, at a time when it was not easy to do. But you know, it's still not easy to do because there's so much bump out there.
Yes. Yeah. It's not. It's what did you say? Was it so much what?
Bump. Drops.
Okay. It's true. It's not. It's well. No, there are a lot of obstacles, and we must persevere. You know, keep on keeping on is the thing. I think stick-to-itiveness is something I would send out as a message to young priestesses and young artists, young writers. And those who are seeking their family history as well. Stick to it. You know.
Yeah, Raven, I want to bring you in here because I know that this is something that you have embodied over the years. Raven is famous for her china cabinets.
I wondered where you were going.
With the history of her family. But, you know, you've told me the stories of your family that came across the plains and talked about Nebraska and Wyoming and places like that. And I'm just, you know, wanting people to see that, you know, who we are is in many ways, it's not as though we were invented whole cloth, you know, instant person. We have come to who we are because of who we came from. And I know that you have a story about China, about the China in being left behind. And I was going to ask you about that.
The China being left behind. Oh, you mean the dream I had about that?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Okay, well, as Gloria said, I've been teased unmercifully because I have not one but two china cabinets. And when I was little, I loved my mother's crystal and her china, and we never used it. And I always wanted it. It was like, this is my mother's. I want it, I want it, I want it. And then as she was getting close to dying, she was going to give it all to my sister's kids. And I said, you are not giving that away. I want it. You have to give it to me. And I always wondered why. I mean, I'm a Cancer, so okay, you know, that's part of it. But I grew up a Mormon, and I had this kind of revelation one day that the reason maybe I was so attached to the china was when the Mormons had to leave Nauvoo when things were, well, they left. They were in New York and they went to Nauvoo and they built this big temple. And they broke up their china and their beautiful things to put into the temple so it would sparkle in the sun. And then they got run out of Nauvoo and everything was burned. And I had this feeling like, yeah, well, no wonder I want my china. My ancestors' china probably got burned up in some temple. And I don't want to give it up. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just a kind of a revelation, an inner feeling that I had. I have no idea if it's true or not. Because
also the story of and it may have been based upon a tarot card, the idea of traveling across the plains and
that's the article I wrote on the Eight of Cups.
Yeah,
based on the Romani tarot deck, and it showed a picture of a covered wagon moving away, and there were 8 cups left behind. And when I was a kid in Wyoming, we used to go out on the prairies, and they were virgin prairies. There was nothing ever built out there, except you could still see the ruts in the ground from the covered wagons that had gone across and all the carts. They were still there. And when I saw that card, I just buckled up in tears because I knew, growing up in Wyoming, all these stories of the pioneers who were coming across, Mormon or otherwise, and they left the East Coast with all their possessions in these wagons. Yeah. And as they got farther and farther out, and the wheels, some of those ruts were very deep where the wagons got very stuck. and they had to start dumping things. You know, the rocking chair got left behind, the china got left behind, the linens got left behind, and all that they took with them were the very essential things. They had to keep lightening the load, and I just felt the grief of that loss of leaving your heritage. Yeah, it's just things, and people give me a hard time about it, but it's not just things. I mean, I think half the reason I drink wine is so I can drink it out of these crystal goblets. I have my grandparents' goblets, and they were married over 50 years. These were their wedding goblets. These have got to be way over 100 years old now. And my mother told me she got her crystal in 1935. And so whenever a piece breaks, I kind of freak out, but I use it.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want from this is, you know, for African Americans, they came with nothing, and yet many of them have assumed or are developed into people of power, people of wisdom. Along the way, they have accumulated whatever it is they have accumulated, but there is still this feeling of loss, that those things that, you know, were there that are no longer there, that call to them.
Yes, I feel that we hold these feelings and these events in our very DNA, and we have this at a cellular level, and so I feel really, Raven, that the cups, you know, are really, you know, there you really do have that, and I feel that we are our ancestors, particularly the female ancestors, are really quite physically a part of us, and so we do have the loss, and as women as well, we have the pain of the witch hunts with us. That's still there. These are trace memories that I think are very much a part of us as Native American peoples. We also have the terrible times of being eradicated and loss of country. So all of that, in addition to the joys that we hold, we do hold all of that, as you say.
Could I ask you a question? Ione, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why is it, do you think, that your female relatives didn't talk about their successes and their accomplishments, that they would only talk about the men? Why? I mean, these are very accomplished women. It's not like, you know, they were just another going to the market on Monday women. I mean, these were impressive women. Why did they not talk of it, do you think?
Yeah, well, that's why I wrote the book, actually, and it's a bit of a mystery story, because it's about me, you know, me trying to move through that and find out what was that, why didn't I grow up knowing about all of this fabulous history of myself as a woman. And it's a feminist issue. You know, it's a feminist thing. It was my mother's difficulties as a child, things that they wouldn't tell me, you know, had happened, that were very painful to them, to my mother particularly. So we did not get along for long time, you know. So I had to move past her to write the book, and that was very painful. That was really painful. I mean, I had to past her in the sense that she wanted to stop me from. I couldn't write a book about women in my family, which I finally did get a a contract to do. I couldn't write that without including my mother, so I wanted to write about her, which I did. So there were things that.
So your mother actually, she was still alive, and she was wanting to stop you. Now, I want to make sure people understand this is not. She was metaphysically. No, she wanted to stop you.
Yeah. It came to that.
Yeah.
And so that was there was a real moment when there were lawyers and things, and my editors said, we got this letter. We got a letter from your mother. And I said, what? No. This is Simon & Schuster. Anyway, she said, don't worry, it'll be fine, and it was. So actually, when the book came out, my mother went with me. We to different readings, and so there was a lot of that. So there was a level of which she was proud of me.
How old was your mother when the book came out?
How old?
How old was she?
That's a good question. I was trained by my mother never to even think about a woman's age. So therefore, what happens to me is when I hear an age, it slips off my mind, and I don't remember. So how old? She must have been. She was 90. She was at 96 in 2008. I don't know. So she was probably in her 80s, early 80s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is, to me, it is the part and parcel of who we have to be, because all of us have mothers, aunts, aunts, grandmothers whose stories were suppressed. And they were suppressed for a variety of reasons. Some simply because they, didn't want it told. Some because they felt that they shouldn't speak of it. I mean, in the South, there was always the idea that you don't get above yourself, which is, you stay humble. You say, and you don't speak about your accomplishments. I mean, my family never had that problem. But then I haven't got a crystal family. I've got a Dixie cup family. So, but
yeah, you can come drink, Chris. You can come drink out of my crystal anytime.
Okay, well that's good, because that's the only way I'm going to get it.
Right.
But for the work that you have done, and I know that has informed your creative work. Not only the book you created about your family, but it also informed your plays and your other work as well. Because in a way, it's like you had to pull the myths of your family forward, and you're also pulling the myths of your life as a woman forward.
Yes, yeah, and I have felt it's really important to bring that forward with my colleagues and students, and that's why I encourage them to find their stories, and that's why the spell-breaking book is so important. It's Remembered Ways of Being, Spell-Breaking, which has 20 women in it. Including someone, when you mentioned Native American heritage, I wanted to mention Mary Elizabeth Thunder to you, who is a dear friend, and I think it would be wonderful if you have her on sometime.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I think we're actually related somehow.
Well, Thunder's in the book, and her story, is so extraordinary. I moved into this room. Can I just get that book quick?
Sure, go right ahead.
And I'm going to read you just the beginning of her story.
So thank you for speaking of your family story, Raven, and the
Well,
Christian.
I like I say, I don't
I
think
wasn't.
it's a family story. It was something that pulled out of me. It's nothing. I've never even heard that my family was in Nauvoo, but somewhere that story came out of me. So it's in there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely there.
Yeah.
Tell us about spell breaking. I think I find this book fascinating.
Yeah, yes, and we're doing a big thing. I'm doing a big benefit performance, writers in performance, with putting this whole thing on the stage
Mm-hmm.
of an old historical movie theater in Rosendale, New York. It's March 29th. Anyway, many of the women will be there, and we'll have song and dance and music. This is the cover of the book, Spell Breaking, Remembered Ways of Being. And you were asking about Prague. In Prague, we were doing readings, launching the book there, and also in Paris, there was a book party for this book. I wanted to mention Mary Elizabeth Thunder. She's on her ranch now, and probably she wanted to watch tonight. I don't know if we see her on, but she will be watching. She's healing because she had a bad accident with a buffalo. Buffalo gored her.
Oh my!
Goodness.
Yeah, but she's healing. She's healing up. What a strong woman that she survived. She's surviving this. Yeah. I just read you a little bit from her. Her piece is called "Reclaiming My Father," and there's her photo. And I'll just read a few lines. Being abandoned by my native mother at 3 weeks, sitting in a crib for 8 days, and living in 22 to 26 foster homes in my first 7 years, doesn't a life of safety and love. It did create one of abandonment, abuse, not being good enough, eating disorders, not feeling well, nor thinking I was anyone special.
Yeah. To reclaim from that story, and to reclaim her space, it's a tremendous,
She's a wonderful teacher in the Native American Lakota Sioux tradition of sun dancers. She is really a chief.
Yeah. So I think that what's her name, the drummer, worked with her for quite a bit.
Imani? Imani White?
Yeah. So anyway, all of this, whether it is carrying the story, is the idea that we carry within us, and we do carry within us. I mean, in the matriarchal DNA of our bodies, we carry Eve.
Exactly.
All the way back.
Oh yeah.
So we do carry, and our sons do as well, and the men do as well. I mean, the matriarchal DNA goes all the way back. And so back to Isis, back to Eve, back to whoever you want to think of as the first woman. And bringing that forward into the space where we are now, where we can sit here in Albuquerque, New York, California, and discuss this openly and honestly and have people listening to us, we've come a long way, baby. I mean, the old commercial. But we've got a long way to go. And so that's part of the reason why I'm so drawn to this spell-breaking book and the idea of, breaking those spells of silence that we have imposed on ourselves.
Yes, and that others have, and that the culture has imposed upon us. Changing that, it is changing, and yet yet as women come up, we find that they still need to break these spells. And I mean, I thought it was over. You know, I thought that we'd moved beyond this, but no, we have not moved beyond it enough so that young women can feel the freedom that they need to feel.
Yeah, and I know that you have some events. We're coming up towards the hour here. I know you have some events coming up where it's an opportunity for people to come and study. You have in November the Ministry of Maåt, the Woman of Duat.
Yes, Women of the Duat, which is our last seasonal retreat of the year and the most powerful one because it is at that season when we are moving through to the solstice, moving through dark solstice, and connecting to the mysteries of the dark and the light, and the concept of the duat itself. So it's life and death, rebirth. We are. I use the term I guide you through. So it's Nekbet. This is the vulture goddess mother, Nekbet Auset.
All hail to her. Yes.
Yes, who is with us, and so we are doing meditation. We're doing at beautiful LifeBridge Sanctuary, and teachings are assisting us to move through those dark places, finding the light in the dark, finding the beauty in the dark itself, and knowing that the duat itself, as Reverend Andrea has pointed out, is in the Egyptian cosmology, it's in the sky. It's not underground. So it's something quite important too.
Well, you know, I think it's important though that the duat is the idea that the sun moves through the duat daily, and we will move through our dark spaces. Maybe not daily, but we do move through them on a regular basis, it seems. And it is the opportunity to do it in community and with a guide such as Reverend Ione or Andrea or Rachel or any of the other ministers of Maåt. We actually need a new word for that. But the women of Maåt.
All of them, they're so wonderful.
Yeah, so to be able to be in that space and have that held. I mean, Raven and I come from Seattle, where we were part of the Women of Wisdom program for many, many years, which every February we have the Women of Wisdom, and which is a pretty dark time of the year, particularly in Seattle.
Oh, yes.
And it's, the idea of coming together in community. And I really want to encourage you, whoever you are, that, rather than just having an internet presence, Facebook, yes, Facebook friends are wonderful people, but Facebook is not a replacement for actually sitting with somebody and having a conversation. I'm sorry. Talk to people. Go out and have dinner with them. Go to the Ministry of Maåt, and Reverend Ione is going to Venice. Now, are you going to be doing some work in Venice, or are you just going to go over there and lollygag?
No, I'm never exactly lollygagging. No, I'm going to be working on, it's a residency, working on a new opera with Pauline Oliveras, who's my partner, who's a composer, and we're writing an opera, so we're working on that. But I will be creating the Dream Festival from Venice to Kingston, and which is the Hudson Valley here, where I am, and beyond. And that will also be on the Facebook, on internet residencies. So there's a dream. This is representing actually the return for me, something really important when I first started Dream Festivals 20 years ago, I thought, I'm going to make a dream festival, and we'll do it in Venice. Well, I never did it in Venice until this year. I'm going to do it in Venice and spread it throughout the world now that we can do that. So there'll be streaming, in other words, between locations in this country and Venice.
Oh, I want to be part of it. I think.
Well, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, great. You're on.
We want to. Raven and I want to be part of that because.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's you know, the dream festivals are really incredible. You know, I was reminded of a book I hadn't read in called The Kinavata Are Waiting for You, which is a tremendous book about dreaming the world into existence. And if you haven't read it, get it. I don't know, you might have to find it in a used bookstore somewhere.
I've got it right on the shelf.
Oh, yeah.
If we were in the other room, you'd see it.
Yeah, that's okay. And, you know, these are, because we are really dreaming the world into existence. And as we dream you, who are listening to us, as we dream as we bring these things into being, we are supporting you in being who you can be so that you can bring forth the story of your family or your core or your life work. And the idea that you're making an opera from dreams is so wonderful. I love it.
Thank you. That helps me. That helps me.
Yeah.
Costumes alone must be phenomenal.
The what? What is phenomenal?
Costumes. Oh my gosh. What a costume opportunity.
Oh, definitely. And the mask, the Venetian mask. I love them.
Yeah, I think we're going to be there carnival time this year. So this time I was once before, just before carnival, but I think we're going to that higher. So
well, that's fabulous, and I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. And would you please tell people how they can get in touch with you?
yes, you can go to IO Dreams at deeplistening.org.
Okay.
IO Dreams at deeplistening.org.
And also you have the Ministry of Maåt, that's M-A-A-T.
And it's ministryofmaåt.org for the website. And there's Ione Dreams as well, ionedreams.us, which is my personal website.
I-O, the letter I, the letter O, Dreams.
Oh, Dreams.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on tonight. And Raven, thank you for being here and being our co-host and taking care of us. And Raven is my good luck charm. So,
Raven,
so I want to let you know that next week we will have someone you probably don't know. But if you do, she is a true treasure. Her name is Rose Marcus, and she's from Canada, and she's an astrologer. And she does evolutionary astrology. And I have been following her astrology, I think now for 14 or 15 years. And I'm always delighted whenever it comes in every month. And so I'm especially delighted to have the opportunity to interview her on a Gathering of Priestesses and have the opportunity to introduce her to you. In addition, we are going to have Thea Summerdeer from Asheville, who's going to be talking in 2 weeks, and a friend of ours, Raven's and mine, Judith Laxer, who is a priestess and has a Gaia temple in Seattle, Washington. She'll be here in 3 weeks. And Ann Key will be coming back right before Halloween, and she will be speaking as well. And in addition, we're going to be moving forward and creating the classes. The Priestess magazine is just about finished. It's basically based on the theory that everything takes at least twice as long and costs twice as much. Well, this is definitely taking twice as long. So, but it is coming along, and we will get it for you. And we are featuring the Ministry of Maåt on the back cover. So the big ad. So hopefully you get some people from us. And
I have one for you too. So.
Okay, great. And we'd love to have an article from you for the next upcoming issue. This is the special issue that's getting us approval from Apple to be on their newsstand. So thank you so much for being present. Thank all of you for being here and listening, and anyone who listens in the future. We are getting quite a few listeners after the show that are watching the show and chiming in, and you know, we're growing as a community, and this is an important part of who we are. You know, I was talking to my caregiver earlier today, and she was wanting to know what was a priestess, and I said a priestess is a woman who serves the divine, who is the hands of the God and the divine, and makes manifest here on earth the work of God, whatever God may look like to you, whether it is a woman, a man, Buddha, or whatever. You know, we are bringing God into being here on earth, the goddess. And as we do that, the goddess herself in our beings, in our body, because we are her representatives and we are also her. So thank you, all you beautiful priestesses, for being here this evening, and thank you, all you beautiful goddesses, for showing up. I really appreciate. Aho, Jackwiasin.